Item 6, Quarterly Strategic Performance Report, which is on page. Councillor Humphrey.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I recommend that we accept the report and particularly look at the points under the negative trends on page 15.4.2. I think Sarah and I have things to say about these points.
Okay, but just a minute, I've got to go to Councillor.
Sorry.
I've got to go to Councillor Kondaka first.
Welcome back from your holidays. This performance report is really dire. I mean, lots of things on the finance are going wrong, and as we'll see in later reports, we're losing income in car parks, civic hall, etc. Loads of stuff to worry about, and the sickness rate is going up quite considerably to add to all that mess. And then we have, right at the back of this, bits about prospects for improvement, which is on page 24. And yeah, we see all these things going on at Bailey Park and Miners Welfare Park. We're actually failing in a large part of the borough to actually look after our sports and recreation facilities. There's a few places where a lot of money is going in, and a large amount of the borough which is just seeing decline. We're seeing more and more under maintenance, yeah, we're seeing more dangerous trees falling, as well the other day, and generally this is a very worrying report. Everything is going slightly wrong compared to an already bad situation. There's a lot of things that aren't on this report, like Borough Plan, which is the most strategic thing we're doing. Yes, it's supposed to be a report on how we're doing, strategic performance report. The Borough Plan is basically stalled for a whole year. You just miss out really important things on your targeting, so that you can say, on balance we're doing okay, when actually we're doing absolutely abysmally. Yeah, this council should be in special measures. Yeah, unless you live near Bailey Park, everything is going pear-shaped. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Councillor Kondaka? No, thank you very much. Michelle Kondaka.
Thank you. I didn't want to sort of go into things very deeply and things, but I was really concerned with the conclusion that I read on, at point 5. An overall positive position with only 3 of the 11 key categories showing a negative trend. But reading through, there are an awful lot of things which are negative and all these things, exception reporting and what have you. So it is of great concern, I think. And if there was an equivalent of the CQC as there is in the health service or Ofsted as there is in education, we would certainly be requiring improvement, if not a lower category than that. For example, at Warwick Hospital, the CQC report, even though 78% of the findings that were good or outstanding, overall it was rated as requiring improvement. You need to be good and outstanding in every bit before you can say, positive. So I think there's an awful lot of work to be done, and it is a concern that things like council tax collection rates are going down as business rates and things, which is an indicator to me that people are starting to struggle. And that's why these collection rates aren't as they should be.
Any questions to Mrs. Kondaka? No, thank you very much. Right, I'll come back then. Sarah.
Thank you. In terms of the council tax collection and business tax collection, we have had a number of vacancies within those sections, which we have been having some difficulty to fill in either a permanent or a temporary capacity. However, we've largely overcome those now. I think they've arisen mainly because staff have either chosen to reduce their hours or they've moved on to other opportunities within the council. So I think it's a sort of a measure of the success of how they're feeling and wanting to move on, but it has meant that our collection rates have dipped slightly against the profile measure, but we've largely addressed those vacant positions now. There's one still remaining in terms of an income recovery officer post, but we're hopeful now that once we are fully staffed that those will begin to improve, but that's something clearly that we'll be keeping as a measure monitoring over the coming months.
Thank you.
And Chair, just in relation to that third negative trend there on page 15, 4.2, the third item, about 3.3 days per full-time equivalent over the period. In terms of short-term absence, we don't have an issue with short-term absence. The issue is long-term absence, 20 days or more. We have a relatively small number of people recovering from operations or awaiting operations, and that has increased the figure. Approximately 75% of the sickness is due to long-term absence. Those individual cases are looked at individually with HR and the directorates, and that's an ongoing basis, Chair.
Thank you. Right, I'm opening it up to members then. Any comments? Councillor Hopper.
Yes, in terms of cutting of council tax, people were beginning to struggle. Could I just point out that household incomes are largely beyond the control of the council? These are to do with external factors, the state of the economy, the benefits regime and so on. And I do take exception to basically critical comments about staff attendance and the way it is managed, when, as has been pointed out, most of this is down to people who have very serious illnesses, have had surgery, sometimes have had a terminal diagnosis, and I have no doubt that we are doing our utmost as a council, with the help of HR and team leaders and so on, to support these members of our staff through very, very difficult times. It is a very serious matter because obviously it costs our budgets significant amounts of money. It means council tax money is going in that direction. It makes it more difficult and challenging to meet the expectations which our residents have. But I think above and beyond anything else, it puts a burden on people who are not on long-term sick in terms of their workload. So I think we are doing everything we possibly can, and these again are factors beyond our control. The number of people who are on long-term sick. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments? Are we agree to accept the report then with those? Thank you. Item 7 is the annual Treasury Management Report. As required by regulation, the Sept Code on Treasury Management, this report details the Treasury Management activity of the Council for the last financial year and includes the prudential and Treasury indicators. The tables within section 5 of the report summarise the Council's closing net debt position and the loans held for the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account as at the 31st of March 2016, with prior year information also shown. More detailed information on borrowing and investment activity and performance is reported in section 8 through to section 10. Appendix 1 shows the actual prudential indicators for 2015-16 compared to the original estimates. All of the indicators are within the expected range and no prudential limits were breached. The Cabinet were asked to approve these indicators along with the rest of the report prior to approval by full Council. On item 7, I have Councillor Kondaka.
Thank you very much, Chair. Starting with the table at section 5.1, the useful table that shows that we're making 8.89% on our investment, which is actually a very good thing. It's very good the Council's making more than 0.5% on its £27 million investment. So that's actually one area that the Council is doing well. Yeah, £27 million, over 0.5% interest means we're actually making money on our investment, which is a pleasant change. But we have a very large amount of investments, and one thing which we are letting rot is some of our estate, and there's also projects which could be done to reduce our energy consumption. So when interest rates are at 0.5%, 40% now, very low levels of interest, is the time to be looking to see if there's any projects that can be brought forward which would actually either improve the state of the housing stock or the council's property to save money in the long term, or energy efficiency measures, or the combination too, because there is a lot of underspending in our housing stock. Things like landlord lighting is failing, and if we start to look at rates of return of 0.8%, there are places we should actually be investing money in our residents and in our stock. Another interesting thing is to look at how massive our capital funds are. And we should have another look, see if we can build new council housing with this money. Because the first ones we build will probably be overspec, but there should be an opportunity to actually build a small amount of council housing stock each year if we do it prudently and at a time of very low housing rates, rather than have the money sitting in a bank account somewhere trying to find 0.5% interest. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions to Councillor Kondaka? No, thank you. Do we have any officer comments on the report?
Nothing about what's in the report.
Thank you. Well, I'm very happy to follow our officers' advice. The financial advice of our officers has been second to none in this authority since its formation in 1974. I've yet to meet anybody who knows more about finance than they do, and therefore I'm happy to move this report.
I'm happy to second that, but in saying that, I think I would need to draw attention to Cabinet. I have done previously, but in regard to the housing revenue account, we are still unsure of many of the implications of the Government's Housing and Planning Act. We don't know the full implications of places like Peterston. We don't know what the effects of sale of high-value voids will do on the housing revenue account, and we don't fully appreciate the implications of rollouts of further benefits of housing. So the HRA is taking an improvement approach, and I think that's the right approach, Chair, but I'm happy to second the motion.
Thank you. Can we agree with that? Thank you very much. Item 8, town centres, which is sorry, I've lost my page. Page 39. We all recognise that our town centres have been suffering, along with the town centres of many places around the country. This council is only part of the running of the town centre. The county council also has a big part. In fact, the traffic movement is entirely in the hands of the county council. Such matters as safety is, again, we are spending money on CCTV, but again it's largely a police responsibility. And in terms of the private sector, a lot of the issues in relation to empty property are entirely the responsibility of private owners. I'm very pleased to say that this council has very few properties empty that are owned by this council in either Nuneaton or Edworth town centres. I think none in Nuneaton, one, and two in Bedworth. Two in Bedworth. So we're very, very pleased with the way we manage our own property portfolio in the town centre, and we are hoping to encourage other property owners to work with the council, and some of these measures will be to working with the council to improve the situation in the privately owned sectors of the town centres. But we are only one aspect of the town centre. We are not, this is not a command authority, it's a command economy, it's a market economy, and therefore we are susceptible to movements of the market. And I actually did hear a business owner saying yesterday, Nuneaton and Bedworth were unusual in that they are sandwiched between three cities. And I think that has not to be forgotten in terms of comparing the success of our town centres with others. But we are prepared and willing to put in extra money. We hope that the County Council will match this and will also put in their money. After all, they take 3/4 of the council tax. And I will challenge them to put in the same sort of financial package that we're putting into the town centres, and to make sure the town centres continue to thrive. So, Councillor Kondaka.
Thank Thank you, Chair. £200,000 invested in our town centre could be a marvellous opportunity. After a decade of moaning about things going downhill, and we had a marvellous peak in 2008 when we had an award-winning town centre, we've really gone downhill, downhill and downhill. Hinckley Rugby are going uphill. Hinckley is benefiting from cheaper taxi fares, cheaper bus fares, and a better managed council that's allowing businesses to thrive. £5.20 is the taxi fare for 2 miles in Hinckley. We have a massive opportunity. I'm glad we recognise there's a problem, and I'm glad we're going to spend £200,000 as emergency measures to try and fix it. I hope this money is going to be spent wisely. We spent £42,000 on uplighters in that park that just shine up into the middle of nowhere. This council has a reputation of taking money and spending it badly, and I'm very concerned that this useful pot of money may be wasted because it's all going to delegated responsibilities, and there's going to be no oversight to make sure this money is spent wisely and not wasted on some stupid project. It is really important. We do have more than 10% of the shops in the town centre empty. I hope you realise that now, and we can actually have an honest debate about how we get down from the levels we're at. And we do have a lot of assets that the council can use and a lot of influence. We set taxi fees, the parking rates. Yeah, we need to have realistic and sensible parking rates for 2 hours. And we're talking later about pullback car park by the Abbey Theatre. Why is that £1.80 for 2 hours? There's a lot we can do to help the town centre, and I really hope this money is going to be spent in a way that is wise. I hope we consult with people from all parties, businesses, shopkeepers, market owners, and actually make good value of this £200,000. And I hope some of my ideas earlier, like town centre Wi-Fi and things like that, will get incorporated, because no one has a monopoly of good ideas, and I hope actually we talk and think a lot and spend once rather than spend foolishly. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions to Councillor Kundalka? Thank you. Michelle Kundalka.
Thank you. Well, I think Pete's covered a fair number of the bits that I wanted to say. I mean, I'm broadly cautiously optimistic that finally some help is being given to the town centres to improve them, because I have seen a distinct decline in the 17 years I've lived in the Legal. Areas, I mean, it's at 3.6 it says has no influence on level. I believe you have an awful lot of influence, and if you could get into dialogue with commercial owners of commercial businesses and what have you and things, I believe you could really have a huge amount of influence. And I know you're not responsible for the roads and things, and there have been issues with the bollards and what have you and things, but again, it needs to be working with Warwickshire County Council, not just saying, oh, that's the county's responsibility, really working together in partnership to get things sorted. I think Keith mentioned also, just exactly how it's going to be spent. I again have concerns. I did sort of think, oh, it's only going to, delegated authority given to managing director and portfolio holder. I'm not saying that you're going to make dreadful decisions and things, but it's a big issue, and it's a good sum of money, and I think everyone needs to be able to put forward their ideas, see what list of ideas that are we thinking of spending on this, and people actually be able to say, yes, that's great, or have you, I don't think that's so good and things. Just have it in the hands of two people, I don't think is a healthy situation. Parking is certainly an issue, and also just encouraging the market, and maybe reducing the market rates as part of this package are certainly bits which would have a big influence in improving the town centre. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Foster.
I can't say it's nice to be back, but these items did catch my eye, which has dragged me over the time as well. As the leader knows, when he was the vice chair of the Town Centre Partnership, I spent a lot of time as a county councillor looking after it. and as has already been stated tonight, the town was already in a terrible state by 2012. Now, something I notice in doing a bit of homework on this is that the managing director at the moment is looking for another town centre manager, which is exactly what we got rid of in 2013. And I wonder if he's aware of that. You may want to take it to a tribunal or so.
Councillor, sorry, I did call you councillor, that's from your mister, I know that. But can I ask you not to raise matters about legal matters
Okay.
that could land you or other people into serious problems?
Okay. Okay, one of the things that caught my eye previously was on the economic development plan. Because the statement on this report, 3.2, actually states the importance of the town centres to the economy within the borough is recognised in the borough's economic development strategy as the centre of the automotive industry. Now, I spent my whole life on the global automotive industry in a company fairly nearby to here, a company that put the first moon print on the moon on the bottom of Neil Armstrong's boot, something called Flu now, if you want to look that up. I had to bring in major important people. I've made this point to the leader before, and this place is not the centre of the car industry. I could never even bring those people to Nuneaton because there were not satisfactory places to eat. There were not satisfactory hotels in the place, and there still are not. And I used that to go around and take them to places like Stratford to eat and that sort of thing. The main thing that did catch my eye is the fact that there is no plan here. You're asking for £200,000. What are you going to spend the money on? The new town centre manager? I don't know. Where is the plan? As a taxpayer, I'm worried about that's a lot of money. Where is it going? I'm sure you could work together with your partners, especially the county councillor. The county council is extremely important, as you know they do take a lot of the council tax because they do most of the work. You seem to forget that when you state those facts. I made the point last year, I brought up very carefully the point about the parking charges. When the new town centre manager, the roadwalk manager, actually came here and complained on that subject.
Thank you.
And I've since spent a lot of time in Hinkley.
Thank you.
Which is...
Have we got any questions to Councillor Foster? Sorry, I keep calling you Councillor. It's years of calling you Councillor. I'm being over polite here. No? Thank you very much. Well, just from the Chair, I would like to stress a couple of things. We're not appointing a new town centre manager. We're appointing a position which will be responsible for the areas of the town centre, but also communications. So it's a completely new role, and part of this has been created by the fact that a member of staff has left who was in charge of various aspects of the council, and we're reorganising the way we do things. We are not reappointing a town centre manager. Secondly, the county council takes 3/4 of the council tax. We have been asking directly for many, many months, if not years, for the bollards to be left up after 4 o'clock till at least 5 o'clock, along with the businesses, so that it is safe for families to come into our town centres. Because a family with small children picking them up from school has no incentive whatsoever to come into our town centres at 4 o'clock and run the risk of their family and their children having to negotiate fast-moving cars and lorries in the town centre. We were at one with the Business Alliance for that. We are totally ignored by the County Council. We have repeatedly asked for the town centre paving to be renewed. The last time it was done was when this council was the Highways Agency of the County Council, and we were given the money. That is now many, many years ago. And the town centre desperately, in both towns, desperately needs the block paving replaced. And not just around the new entrance signs, which they only did after a lot of complaint from this council and moved the tarmac that stuck down. So we do need the county council, but it takes two to tango, and we are repeatedly asking them to bother about Nuneaton and Bedworth. Nuneaton is the largest town in this county, the largest town, with probably the worst. Thank you, I just heard you comment, Councillor. Probably the worst care from the County Council. We demand something for our 3/4 of the council tax paid to the Shire Hall. And we demand a lot more than a few new entrance signs. Nearly all the things in the town centre which desperately need putting right are the responsibility of the authority which takes 3/4 of the council tax. And if I seem to be getting very annoyed about it, I am very annoyed about it, and so are the families with young children who try and avoid the lorries at 4 o'clock, or the idiots who bring in cars at high speed to park anywhere, including right in front of benches where elderly people and families are sitting. And let's let the majority of people in Nuneaton and Bedworth have a decent town centre in which to shop. And that will bring people back into the town centres. We are doing what we can here, but it takes a lot more from the County Council as well. When we talk about Nuneaton and Bedworth, I want to add that last night we had the launch of the West Midlands Combined Authority in a very nice hotel at Weston Hall, where we had business leaders, community leaders, and people from the West Midlands Combined Authority. The event was sponsored by Holland and Barrett, who've got their international headquarters in Nuneaton, and whose chief executive officer praised the council and this area for the sort of area that their company have moved into and are expanding into. And he was full of praise throughout the evening, and so were other business leaders there. So what we need is people to be positive about this town and about Bedworth, and not negative. Being negative continually about your own town has the opposite effect. And while a lot of us are trying to be very positive about the benefits of living here, working here and visiting Nuneaton and Bedworth, the constant knocks on Nuneaton and Bedworth are just the things that will drive people away and keep people away. So I was very pleased to hear what was said from Holland and Barrett, and I know that other companies, large companies, are looking to invest similarly, and that isn't because we're such dreadful places. Councillor Addington.
Thanks, Chair. It's interesting, we get bashed for not doing anything with town centres, we're getting bashed for doing something with town centres. Now it's interesting, rugby was mentioned. Well, I work very close to rugby, and a lot of colleagues of mine live in rugby. And I was speaking to one recently, and she mentioned that a new shop was open, I think it was New Look, was opening somewhere. So I said, oh right, is that in the town centre? No, I don't need to go to Rugby Town Centre ever again. If you go to Rugby Town Centre, you'll see why. It is absolutely desolate. There are tumbleweeds flying through that town centre, because they have big out-of-town shopping areas, something that we've resisted for many, many years. And actually now we're taking the right tack here by investing in both town centres, Nuneaton and Bedworth. I would remind some people there are two town centres within our borough. And so I applaud this report, Chair, and I will wholeheartedly back this report.
Councillor Jones.
The weather's been pretty spectacular, I think, this summer, and it's allowed many of us to get out and about into our town centres and into our parks, we have two destination parks, the Mines Welfare Park and Riversley Park, which are superb facilities, and whenever I go in them, I cannot believe the number of people using those parks, really enjoying using those parks, on the play equipment, on the outdoor gyms, walking the marked miles, really enjoying life in Nuneaton and Denver. Not one of them ever says anything negative to me about car parking charges. Indeed, if they visit our parks, the first 3 hours is free in any event. I think there's an awful lot about Nuneaton that's really, really positive. And we need to talk our two towns up to really show everyone that we are punching above our weight as a borough. And I'm very proud to live here and to enjoy being part of this wonderful community.
Can I take it then that we're all in favour of the report and look forward to seeing some improvements from what we can do? That what we need is... can I just add that the Nuneaton Business Alliance has been very positive about the steps we have taken in terms of what we're trying to do with them at the moment, and we hope that that will be reciprocated in Bedworth also. Item 9 is the capital programme.
I apologise for being late, Chair. I come back from the floor. Now it's a well-being board.
Did they ever come here?
Sorry?
Did they ever come here?
What do
We'll send them some maps.
all round up there,
Right, item 9. The report updates the Cabinet on the capital programme for the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account for the current financial year. It's requested that the General Fund programme be increased by approximately 1.5 million. This is to increase the budgets on 3 existing schemes and for 2 new schemes to be added to the programme. Full details of these additions are included in section 4 of the report, with the financing of this increased programme being shown in paragraph 4.9. The HRA programme, as detailed in section 5, requires an additional 356,000 to complete the vehicle procurement programme. The additional budget is due to revisiting the requirements and specifications to ensure the vehicles we procure are fit for purpose and can meet the demands of the service over the coming years. This additional budget can be financed from resources held within an earmarked reserve set aside for capital purposes. The detailed programmes are shown in Appendix A, and the revised programme now requires Cabinet and Council approval. So all councillors will get 2 bites of the cherry basically to talking about this, and the recommendations are set out at section 2. Michelle Kondaka.
Right, there are a few items on this report that I wanted to highlight. I mean, I think 4.4 about the Coolbank Road garages and car park works. I think it is good to, get rid of those garages and try and make the area, safer. I do regularly cycle across that way, so anything that makes it look better, is to be welcome. I have serious doubts though about the 4.5, about item 4.5, about generating the additional revenue car park income to cover that. I don't know whether you ever go round that way, but that car park is rarely used unless there is something on at the Abbey Theatre. And when the Abbey Theatre has its events on, that is invariably in the evening, when parking is now free. Both that car park and Upper Abbey Street need to have a much lower rate, maybe £1, whatever it is. I walked past Upper Abbey Street last week, middle of the day. I actually parked in Meadow Street because it's free, and there were about 6 cars, both at 10 o'clock and about 12:30 when I came back. And so these car parks aren't getting used, so that income generation is just not going to happen. I'm absolutely sure of that. So I think you need to look at the budgeting on that thing. I was also concerned with 4.8 about the increased budget required for the new depot and things. Purely that I can't believe that it wasn't actually properly worked out as how much you would actually need. We've just been doing a like that. So I, do find that very concerning that, the right amounts weren't, sorted or allowed for. 5.2, the vehicle replacement programme. Again, this seems absolutely bizarre that, 1 year underspending by 356,000, but then only not holding that as to be needed and things. That seems very bizarre. And I'm also concerned just by the sheer amount for the vehicles that's being used, because the play ranges have stopped, so that's released vehicles. I've gone on about the climbing wall before and things, and that is an issue because there's been another vehicle being purchased for the countryside team because their vehicle is being used for the climbing wall.
Thank you. Any questions to Mrs. Caldecott? No? Thank you very much. Any member comments on this section? I think we all recognise, or at least the Cabinet recognises, that to plan everything to the nth degree is in such a large organisation, when we're talking about such large figures, is actually not possible. And that what we ask our officers to look very carefully about ways money can be saved if things are going to an overspend, but then we do get the opposite effect as well with underspends during the year that at the end of the financial year are the important figures to look at. So I think we're generally happy. And I have to say that the excellent auditors report, external auditors report that came out, which complemented this council under almost every aspect, is a proper independent judgment on the council, and the sort of judgment I take to be one that is valid. So are we agreed then to agree this report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item 10, which is General Fund and Housing Revenue. The report updates Cabinet on the forecast outturn for both the General Fund and HRA at the end of June 2016. Section 4 gives a summary of the overall forecast outturn as at the 30th of June. The General Fund is currently forecasting a contribution to reserves of 64,000 at the year end, representing a favourable variance of 41,000. Further details are shown at Appendix A. And the HRA is currently forecasting an increased surplus of 207,000, and further details are shown at Appendix B. However, a health warning with those figures that when we are such a short time into the financial year, we have to be careful really that things could happen during the year that will make a big difference to those figures either way. Section 5 discusses the main spend pressures that are emerging for the year for the General Fund and refers to the available options to deal with the spend pressure for the Trade Refuse Service and how this can be managed most effectively. Coventry City Council currently operate the collection service on our behalf, and it is recommended that the transfer of the administrative function to them will help to offset the spend pressure due to be incurred in 2016-17 as a result largely from increased waste disposal costs. Sections 6 and 7 consider the performance of key income budgets and whether we are achieving the savings targets included within the budget. Section 8 highlights the additional external funding the communities team have been successful in acquiring and requires additional expenditure and income budgets to be created to reflect this. Additionally, 125,000 of the reserve set aside to deal specifically with the housing system implementation costs will be utilised in 2016-17, and the HRA budget needs to reflect this additional spending and income. Appendix C shows the General Fund and HRA budgets following these adjustments for approval by Cabinet and subsequently Council. I think there is just one speaker on this, Councillor Condell.
Thank you, Chair. The council takes 13%, you keep saying, for the council tax for its own use. The figure in Rugby is 9%, so we're not particularly good on that aspect. Looking at detail where our income is changing, on page 9, section 6.1, market stall income, 18,000 below budget. But the budget is a lot lower than it used to be. We used to earn £500,000 in market income. That's down to £250,000 now. The markets are suffering with the incompetence of this council and the repeated increases in parking charges, taxi fees, etc. The Civic Hall, £34,000 is all we're going to make from council-run shows. That's absolutely appalling. We spend £750,000, that's the cost of the bed of Civic Hall. To make 34,000 on our shows and 135,000 on private shows just shows how we need to shake the Civic Hall up and put some emergency measures in to actually get more income. The refusal of the Civic Hall to have a decent system for buying tickets over the internet and discounts that apply going to the booking office. We need to sort the Civic Hall out. £750,000 a year is unsustainable. Car parking income further down, £30,000 under forecast of car parking income, and that's just for 1/4's impact of the car parking hike. Given the whole year and the closure of the co-op and British Home Stores, we're going to be £100,000 to £200,000 down on car parking income because of the stupid way the fees have been set. Planning income is one of the easiest ways of raising money, but that is a false income because we're actually destroying our countryside and we haven't got the officers to properly get the money from developers. So people are building on our countryside. All our ability to get money, like the parks team and things, is severely compromised by the amount of applications we've got coming in. So extra income from planning is actually at the expense of destroying our borough. This is actually an appalling set of figures. And then we see over the page an underspend on planning policy because they've got staff vacancies. £39,000. That's not actually a saving because we're then using consultants to read the responses to the borough plan. We're using consultants to work out our strategy in the future. And these consultants don't have the interest in the residents of this borough in any way consideration. The borough plan is an almighty waste of money, and this lack of staff, this £39,000 underspend in the planning policy team, is actually not good news. It just means the borough plan is yet another few months late. This council is going from bad to worse, and these figures show what a mess we're in. And in the future, when the business rates start falling, we're going to be in a worse mess. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions to Councillor Kundaka? No, thank you very much. Any member? No? Are we all happy that we accept the report? Obviously there are currently worrying trends, but there are also some pleasing trends in there, and we have every confidence in our officers to work through this towards the end of the year. I have to say that despite everything that's been said, this borough continues to be one of the very few in the county, if not the country, to continue to run the vast majority of its services since having lost 55% of government grant. And I've challenged everybody to find another council who have done the same. And so far I've had no response. We're all in favour of the report? Thank you very much. We've got no recommendations from other than scrutiny.
No.
Thank you very much. No other items that have brought to our attention. And I thank everybody for their attendance and thank the officers for their hard work in their day-to-day jobs, but also in bringing these reports to Cabinet.